Hare Krishna, Prabhus. I think that Dhruva is scheduled to give class this morning. He has indicated that he is running late. He is dressing the deities. Um, and I myself am having to contend with a minor emergency here, but I guess I can try to get us started, but I will not be able to spend much time here. So we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayoradha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayoradha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavandam Maturadam Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navaditam Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puridam Ki Tanagari Dam Ki Jai Gangamayi Jamunamayi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga all glories to ISKCON founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastaprayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishyaki Hare Krishna. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dharati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Shri Vishakam Vidamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Hare Krishna. We are reading today from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 12, entitled The Perfect Society for Spiritual Classes. And today's text is number 15. Agnau Gurav Hare Krishna. Agnau Gurav Atmanija Sarva Bhutesh Vahoksajam Bhutaisva Damabi Pashyad Apravishtam Pravishtavat Agnau Gurav Atmanija Sarva Bhutesh Vahoksajam Bhutaisva Damabi Pashyad Apravishtam Pravishtavat Agnau Gurav Atmanija Sarva Bhutesh Vadhokshajam Bhutaisva Damabi Pashyad Apravishtam Pravishtavat. Would anybody like to attempt the chanting of the verse.
Agno Gura Atmani Cha Sarva Bhutesvad Ad Okshajam Bhutasva Dhamabhi Pasyed Apravistam Pravistavat.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to chant the verse?
Agnakura Atmani Cha Sarva Bhutesh Padokshajam Bhutaisva Dhamabhi Pashyat Apradishtam Pravistavat.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? Hare Krishna. Okay. Once upon a time, long, long ago, when Srila Prabhupada was with us, everyone, as far as possible, would chant the Sanskrit. It was Srila Prabhupada's desire that everyone become familiar with the pronunciation of Sanskrit terms and also the meaning of the terms. And for that reason, the synonyms were also repeated by everyone, because by gradually hearing both the Sanskrit term and its meaning, gradually we would acquire an understanding of the meaning. It would gradually stick. There was actually a time when Srila Prabhupada gave Sanskrit classes. That was very early, 1966. Later, he found that most individuals did not really have the capacity, and that he was losing the attention of his audience, so he refrained from doing that. But he did insist upon everyone chanting the Sanskrit and the word-for-word synonyms together. And he explained that these verses are themselves transcendental mantras. They are like the Hare Krishna mantra, they are non-different from Krishna. And by hearing and chanting this sound vibration, meditating on the transcendental qualities of that sound vibration, we are actually engaged in meditation and service to Krishna. Anyway, we will proceed with the synonyms. Now, in the fire, Guru, in the spiritual master, Atmani, in one's self, Cha, also, Sarvabhuteshu, in every living entity, Adhoksajam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who cannot be seen or perceived with the material eyes or other material senses. Bhutahai, with all living entities. Swadharma Vihi, along with his lordship's paraphernalia. Pashyet, one should see. Pravishtam, not entered. Pravishtavat, also entered. Translation. One should realize that in the fire, in the spiritual master, in oneself, and in all living entities, in all circumstances and conditions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has simultaneously entered and not entered. He is situated externally and internally as the full controller of everything. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's omnipresence is the perfect realization of the absolute truth to be attained through the study of the Vedic literatures. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, this is chapter 5, verse 35. Text 5 actually, chapter 5 is actually the only chapter that we have of Brahma Samhita, but it's text 35. Andantara paramanu jayantarastam. The Lord is situated within the universe, within the heart of every living entity, and also within the atom. We should understand that whenever the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present, he is present with all his paraphernalia, including his name, form, associates, and servants. The living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus one should understand that since the Supreme Lord has entered the atom, the living entities are also there. One must accept the inconceivable quality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for no one can understand from the material point of view how the Lord is all-pervasive, and yet he is situated in his own abode, Goloka Vrindavan. This realization is possible if one strictly follows the regulative principles of ashrama, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Srimad Vacharya says in this regard, Apravishtas sarva gata pravishtas dvanu. Apravishta sarva gata pravishtas dvanuru pavan evam dvi rupo bhagavan harir eko janardanaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his original form, has not entered everything, apravishtaha, but in his impersonal form, he has entered, pravishta. Thus, he has entered and not entered simultaneously. This is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 4, wherein the Lord says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina mat stani sarvabhutani na chaham dveshvavastitaha. The Lord is present everywhere, but still everything is not within him. Thus there is unity in variety. Ekatvam bahutvam. Hare Krishna. Om Agana Timarandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Chakshurmiritam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gata Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Going to attempt to fill the time with a little Krishna Gita while we wait for his grace, Dhruva Prabhu, to appear. To start with, and here he is, the man himself, the man of the hour, the illustrious Dhruva Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Obeisances from the front, from the back, and on all sides. Hare Krishna.
Obeisances. Sorry.
I will yield the floor to His Grace Dhruva Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Well, what's the verse number?
It is 15, 7, 12, 15.
Die. Okay, so where are we starting? We just reread the verse already?
I read the verse, I read the purport.
Die.
We just finished the purport.
Okay. Wonderful. Prabhu, yes, please go ahead. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. You had to come all this way. I wanted so much to help you out, but a little tough. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'll quickly just read one more time. I'm sorry to duplicate things, devotees, if you all don't mind. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One should realize that in the fire, in the spiritual master, in oneself, and in all living entities, in all circumstances and conditions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has simultaneously entered and not entered. He is situated externally and internally as the full controller of everything. Purport. Realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's omnipresence is the perfect realization of the absolute truth, to be attained through the study of the Vedic literatures. As stated in the Brahma Samhita 535, Andantara Stam Paramo Chayantara Stam. The Lord is situated within the universe, within the heart of every living entity, and also within the atom. Thank you. We should understand that whenever the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present, he is present with all his paraphernalia, including his name, form, associates, and servants. The living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, one should understand that since the Supreme Lord has entered the atom, the living entities are also there. One must accept the inconceivable quality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And no one can understand from the material point of view how the Lord is all-pervasive and yet situated in his own abode, Golok Vrindavan. This realization is possible if one strictly follows the regulative principles of ashram, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Srila Madhvacharya says in this regard, Apravista sarva gata pravista stvi anurupavam evam dvi rupo Bhagavan Harir Eko Janardana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form has not entered everything, apravista, but in his impersonal form he has entered pravista. Thus, he has entered and not entered simultaneously. This is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita 9.4, wherein the Lord says, Mayat tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina mat stani sarva bhutani na chaham tvesh avastita. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. The Lord can defy himself. Thus, there is variety in unity. Ekatvam bahutvam. Om Agena Timrandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpa Trubhyasya Kripa Sindhurevacha Patita Nama Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, of course, we are going through the different layers. Yeah, that's fine. Any? It was so beautiful. Any? Yeah, no, it's for the next festival. We'll get it again. Prabhu has been doing very nice service. So, of course, yesterday we had such a amazing class given by His Holiness Devamrita Swami. I think he has uncovered many new beginnings for all of us. Of course, it's new in one sense, but it's something old that we all, anyway, I think Marge's class from yesterday needs to be, we need to do an SEO, search engine optimization, and anybody Googles anything. Nevertheless, today's verse, the simple question being asked is, where is Krishna? And of course, when we ask the devotees, depending on the experience of devotees, most devotees will say that Krishna is in the temple. Some may say that he's in the deity form. Some may say he's in the holy name. Some may say he is in the heart. Some may say he is everywhere. So which is the correct answer? So of course, we know that the correct answer is it's all of the above and more. But of course, this verse is asking us, please go much deeper. Spiritual life is not merely trying to understand intellectually that Krishna is everywhere, but to live as though Krishna is everywhere. So technical point there. Jai Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. So we don't want to just intellectually, we want to live our life, day-to-day life, with all the trials and tribulations. Of course, we understand we're in the material world. And, this material world is a place of misery. So still, we want to live our daily lives as though Krishna is everywhere. So, if we understand the real purport of this verse, then we will start to treat devotees differently, family members. We'll be able to deal properly in difficult situations, in every facet of our day-to-day lives, from waking up in the morning, brushing our teeth, doing puja, going to work, interacting with people at work, how we care for the temple, how we treat the cows, how we treat the animals, everything will change. If we can only understand the real purport of what this particular verse is saying. Of course, it's explained that Krishna has entered, but he has not entered. So simultaneously, we understand there's Achinta Beda philosophy, that Krishna is simultaneously within everything, and he's also beyond everything. And this is one of the great mysteries of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he is within and without. So let's try and see how we can understand he has entered and he has not entered. So of course, this verse is being quoted, Bhagavad Gita 9:4. My unmanifested form pervades the entire universe. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And then, of course, 9:5 says, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. So this is called the inconceivable potency of the Lord. So let's use an example to try to illustrate this point of entered and not entered. So we can use the example of the sun. We all understand that the sun is many, many millions of miles away. But then when we wake up in the mornings, especially during, the summer months, we see that the sun has entered our room. So has the sun entered, or how to understand it? So we can understand that the sun is present through its energy. We feel the heat. Of course, we sometimes can see the sunlight. But the entire sun itself, we understand, has not entered the room. Yeah, apologies for the... Prabhuji works in Harrisburg, and so he helped to do some decorations, and he found a gap in his schedule to come take out the decoration. So we apologize for the noise. So in a similar way, like the sun, we understand the sun hasn't entered our room, but we understand because there's heat, we can see some sunlight. If it's a summer morning, we can understand, the sun is present, but we understand that the sun is present through its energy. So in a similar way, Krishna is present everywhere through his different energies. And one of the basic understandings we have is that Krishna is present in the region of the heart. Tough. It's always something. And, he is present as Paramatma within our hearts. So we can see that, in this way, that Krishna is present in the hearts of living entities, then in this way he is, in a similar way, he is pervading throughout all of creation. Yet, when we have some basic understanding of Krishna consciousness, we understand that Krishna is a cowherd boy in Golok Vrindavan, in his transcendental abode. And this understanding that God is everywhere does not mean that everything is God. So we need to really understand this basic principle, because, of course, this Mayavadi philosophy is there. And so there's a subtle distinction between Krishna having entered and not entered, and this, impersonal idea that everything is God. It doesn't mean that because Krishna is within our hearts as Paramatma, doesn't mean that we have become God. So this, basic understanding needs to be there to be able to grasp and make advancement in our spiritual lives, that we are not God just because the Paramatma is there. Still, at the same time, we need to recognize that Krishna within the heart, of course, Bhagavad Gita in chapter 15, he explains, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Similarly, Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, that the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna. So, when we speak to another person, we can understand that the Paramatma is within that person's heart as well. So, if we can really imbibe this understanding that, Krishna is also within your heart, then in a similar way, that when we see the deity in the temple, we have this awe and reverence. So why not have the same understanding and mood with another person, that Krishna is situated within their heart, and, at least there should be some awe and reverence. So if there is that understanding and we, really imbibe it, take it into our lives, then our interactions with each other would be so much different. And not just with each other as human beings, but if we see that all living entities have this Paramatma feature, or this Krishna within their hearts, then we can see the magnanimousness of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, we should be more careful of how we are dealing with other living entities. So, then at least on the human platform, we should be mindful. If we become, maybe just someone can help, Prabhu. Okay, that's fine, he's chanting. Would we become angry with somebody if we really understood the principle that there is Krishna as the Paramatma within the hearts of the other living entities, or the other humans for that matter? If we could see the Paramatma sitting within someone's heart, would I be able to get upset and angry with that person? So of course, there's distinct individuals. There is the living entity and there is the Paramatma. We shouldn't see them as one. They are definitely distinct individuals, but at the same time, if Krishna is within the heart region, we should also be mindful of how we see other persons. So then this verse is also pointing out in particular that let's go back to this verse quickly. So the lesson in this particular verse is one should realize that in the fire, in the spiritual master, in oneself, and in all living entities, in all circumstances and conditions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has simultaneously entered and not entered. So we're talking about now the spiritual master and trying to understand this concept of in the spiritual master, in oneself. So one can ask, why mention the Guru? And the understanding is because our understanding is spiritual knowledge comes through the parampara system, the Guru parampara system. And of course, Bhagavad Gita 434, famous verse, Tat vidi prani pratena pari prasnena sevaya upadeksanti te jnanam janinas tattva darshina. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Therefore, we should not just see the Guru as simply a personality with opinions, but as a representative through which Krishna's knowledge is coming. We understand that in spiritual life, without the spiritual master, not much progress can be made. Yes, on a theoretical platform, you can try to understand things. And like we're saying, this verse is pointing out there's a difference between the theory and our day-to-day lives, living life, on a day-to-day basis. So we just don't want to theoretically understand things. And we understand that spiritual knowledge needs to come in disciplic succession. Otherwise, as we can see today in society, there's so many bogus gurus that might have read some version of a Bhagavad Gita and are giving their own understanding of Krishna's actual words. But if they're not coming in disciplic succession, then what's the use? There's so much of perversion today, and people definitely have so many concocted ideas of what their understanding of Bhagavad Gita is. And I forget now, but there's definitely several hundred translations out there of the Bhagavad Gita, and this is why Srila Prabhupada has kindly given us Bhagavad Gita as it is. no adulteration to Krishna's actual words. So, thank you, Prabhu, for helping. Then if one is able to approach a bona fide spiritual master for transcendental knowledge, of course, because he has seen the truth, he can impart it to the living entities. And in this way, this spiritual knowledge coming directly from Krishna is handed down to all of us. And we can understand, Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that the supreme knowledge has been lost a few times already. And every time it has been lost, he has to come back down and explain it for the benefit of us living entities. And in this case, of course, he is now sharing this knowledge with Arjuna for all of our benefit. Because Arjuna is, although he is a pure devotee of the Lord, he is, in one sense, acting in a bewildered condition that, he doesn't have any knowledge. So, he's trying to give Krishna his own philosophy. I don't want to fight in this war. So much calamity will be there. He's trying to give his own rationale and reasons why he does not want to fight. But of course, Krishna gives him pure transcendental knowledge that, you're a Kshatriya and your duty is that you have to fight. So in this way, we can see that, somebody can quickly concoct different ideas. But once one is coming in this disciplic succession and has proper knowledge, then they can understand things in proper perspective. And how does that verse go in Bhagavad Gita? The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. So how to see this? But of course, the proper understanding is, if you can see that there is Krishna within the heart of all of these different living entities, then you can, see things in proper perspective, that Krishna is within the heart of all of these living entities. They're just in different bodies of a dog, a dog-eater, an elephant, a cow, a brahmana, for that matter. But we can understand that, there's differences in behavior within the animal species and the human species. But at the same time, we recognize that the soul is distinct and separate from the Paramatma. So just to bring things closer back to home, at least if we can, not even focus so much on the Paramatma within animal species, at least let's try to bring things closer to home, just on the human platform as, a basic understanding, so that we can, treat others with kindness in our day-to-day interactions with each other. If there is some disagreement amongst persons, amongst devotees, how we can treat each other with kindness. Then, we don't go down this road of speaking badly about others, because we can understand this Krishna within their hearts as well. And, someone may be in a ignorant situation for the time being, but the understanding is we want to try to uplift each other and try to help each other grow. And of course, on the highest level, we want each other to grow on the spiritual platform. So it takes a lot of work. And by trying to really see within Krishna, within, someone else's heart, especially when there's, abuse, some injustice that has been done, then, immediately we forget that, there is Krishna within the heart. Of course, we rationalize it by saying that, well, the person, would not have been arrogant, would not have, yelled at me, or whatever the situation might be, if they had Krishna within the heart. But we should have compassion, understanding that, the person was confused or bewildered and, did something in a rash way. But recognizing that Krishna is within the heart, we can see how to help that person and not hate the person for their actions. Of course, our greatest challenge is sometimes we perceive others as being difficult people. And then, of course, it becomes very much more difficult if we have that, understanding of someone, that how do you see Krishna in a difficult person? But we can analyze it from different points of view. We can see that, like I said, the person is in some bewildered condition. But we can ask ourselves, what is Krishna trying to teach me in this situation? By this interaction, by this person, and reflect like that, rather than trying to control the person, trying to change them. We can look for changes within ourselves. And in any interaction for that matter, especially in the workplace, might be easy amongst devotees in general to have this, understanding that there is Krishna within the heart, but especially in the workplace becomes very, very difficult to see, why is this situation, presented to me, especially when there's, some heated argument going on between two work colleagues. We are always trying to justify our own point of view. But, rather than trying to do that, one can try to take a step back, in a heated moment, don't engage, take some time out, cool off, and then see, what is Krishna trying to teach me? Is he trying to teach me maybe patience, humility, tolerance, look at different ways to communicate. Sometimes mediation may be necessary, and like that. What happens when someone criticizes our service? So the immediate, of course, reaction for most of us is that we become upset and angry. We become defensive. Sometimes, depending on our mental state, we can also go the next level, become depressed, start saying things like, I'm useless. But if we, try to uplift ourselves out of an interaction and look at it from a devotional point of view, then we can ask ourselves, is there something that I can learn from this criticism? How can I remain respectful, despite me thinking that this interaction is unfair? And, if we start to think in this way, train ourselves, it's not going to happen overnight. We may make mistakes. But if we can train ourselves to think in this way, look at what the lesson is that Krishna is trying to teach us, then in this way, it will show that, we are having some spiritual maturity in the interaction. What else can we say about these verses? So we can gradually try to see, Krishna even outside of living entities, how Krishna is even pervading around us within the environment. So, of course, in Bhagavad Gita 9:10, Krishna is explaining this material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and producing all moving and non-moving parts. So, if we can understand this next level, that, Krishna is everywhere, pervading everything, then, even in, like this verse is saying, all moving and non-moving beings, that is Krishna in the rock, is Krishna in the mountain, is, Krishna in the air, is Krishna everywhere. This is the next level of understanding that, simple understanding, like we said, was, Krishna is within all living entities. But then we need to be able to go to the next level and see that, this entire material nature, when there is disasters, natural disasters, flooding, hurricanes, we can understand that, all of these environmental factors is also being controlled by Krishna. So then, it takes more deeper understanding to be able to get to this level of realization. But if we can get there gradually as we practice spiritual life, as we hear and chant Krishna's holy name, then gradually these, levels of understanding will gradually mature, and we'll be able to see Krishna's hand, in everything around us, not just the living entities. Everything is Krishna's energy. Of course, Balaram Purnima is coming up, and we'll be able to see that everything around us is Krishna's energy. Without confusing ourselves to the point that we say everything merges and becomes one. So as we said, this is the Mayavad philosophy, that Krishna actually merges and everybody becomes God. This is complete bogus philosophy, that everything is God. We need to understand that there is the soul, and then there is the super soul. And this material energy of Krishna is working just within the material world, under Krishna's direction. And so if we start to, see Krishna everywhere, of course we started out by saying, sometimes it is easy enough to see Krishna in the temple. Then we said, okay, let's graduate to the next level, that Krishna is within all living entities. And then gradually, next level of realization is that Krishna is everywhere, even within the moving and non-moving entities. And gradually, as we associate with devotees, as we chant in the association of devotees, our spiritual life gradually advances. But these key ingredients of chanting, hearing about Krishna in the association of devotees, we gradually advance in our own spiritual lives, to the point where we come to this bhakti platform. So it's not about that we simply want to develop our understanding of the mystic aspects of Krishna. We want to get to the goal of performing devotional service to Krishna. And it is only by performing devotional service to Krishna that we can make the most amount of spiritual advancement. Because as simple as it may seem, if we are worshipping Krishna, engaging in practical devotional service, simple things like, cleaning the temple, helping prepare the bhoga offerings for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for Krishna, helping in practical ways that, allows the functioning of the temple, then in this way we can gradually make spiritual advancement. In a simple way, the altar is going to open. So we'll end here. If devotees can come, the altar doors are going to open any second now. Maybe I can take a walk around. And we can continue discussing. Wow. Was that difficult? Trying to do construct. Okay, we can gradually make spiritual advancement by performing devotional service. And our understanding is that, there's so many different types of practice that one can engage in, but it is only by performing devotional service, it's the easiest method to make spiritual advancement. Otherwise, there's so many different types of meditation that one can engage in to make spiritual advancement. So much of knowledge can be gained by, studying all the shastras systematically. But ultimately, if we don't engage in devotional service, our daily lives in this material world can and will at some point snowball and become practically impossible. So, we understand on a very practical way, this is how people get to committing suicide. That, they may have some challenge, whether they're born with it or gradually developed some challenge, that, they don't find any hope, of going on with their lives in this material body. They just get so exhausted with trying, so many different things that, persons eventually sometimes resort to suicide. And we can see, in this day and age of Kali Yuga, that this is happening more and more in society today. So let us try to be compassionate, share this Krishna consciousness with others, so that they can also benefit by taking to their spiritual life seriously, and understanding what is matter, what is spirit, how to make spiritual advancement, what's the easiest method in this age of Kali Yuga, so that we can be happy in this life and the next. So Marge was just mentioning yesterday in the class how, as a bhakti practitioner, we want to just selflessly engage in Krishna's devotional service. whether we go back home, back to Godhead or not, after this lifetime, should not be the primary focus, because then it's not pure bhakti. So I'm still meditating on that point Marge was making, and trying to really unpack it and imbibe it more and more. What is this pure devotional service? Okay, devotees, please, I apologize for the unprepared class, but somehow or the other, the situation was a little intense this morning. So please share your thoughts and realizations on this verse, dear devotees. Let's see who's still with us. Kauri, Sachi, Hari Chakra Prabhu, and Jagannath Pandit. Jai, Mother Leela Kishori.
Hare Krishna, Dhruva Prabhu. I want to thank you for a very nice class. I am suffering kata overload. Too many excellent points for me to assimilate at once. I have some got a little bit of a personal emergency I'm having to contend with here right now. I don't have the time to engage in a lot of conversation, but I did want to be sure to thank you for a nice class, even on short notice or unprepared. Many excellent points, lots to unpack and think about. And particularly the care with which we have to regard Vaishnavas and everyone really in our dealings, not just the Vaishnavas, not even just the human beings, but all living entities, all Krishna's parts and parcels. As you pointed out again and again, Krishna is present there in the heart of all living entities. When we offer obeisances to one another, one may offer obeisances to another Vaishnava, but we are particularly offering obeisances to the Lord within the heart of the devotee. Because Krishna is present there, we should always be extremely respectful, but we are especially respectful when we're dealing with other Vaishnavas who are servants of the Lord. There are lots of living entities who are not acting in the capacity of servants. They are servants nonetheless, eternally servants, but not necessarily conscious of that fact and acting according to the dictates of the modes of nature. So our dealings differ depending upon the condition of a particular living entity. The Lord's present in the heart of all living entities. It's present in the heart of a tiger. But we deal with a tiger differently than we deal with a human being. We have to be pragmatic. And so, it's not that we throw logic and reason out the window, but although the dealings may have to vary depending upon the conditions, the circumstances, nonetheless, the devotee remains always respectful. Sometimes dealings are necessarily harsh. In the case of a extreme example would be the instance of Arjuna actually having to wage war with his family members, killing them. And so, but not inappropriate. His action was appropriate. It was directed by Krishna. And even had Krishna not directed it on the basis of the laws of Dharma, the action was justifiable and appropriate. But Krishna's instruction was to perform that duty and simultaneously think of him. Thinking of Krishna means that he must be aware that Krishna is present everywhere, is also present in the hearts of those living entities with whom he's waging battle. He's having to kill people who have Krishna in their heart. And yet it's not inappropriate. So many factors have to be juggled, and it's difficult sometimes. And so therefore we have detailed instructions available to us in Shastra and the explanations provided by our acharyas and our spiritual master, because it can be very difficult sometimes to understand what is one's duty. And sometimes even Vaishnavas give all consideration and deliberation to particular issues, philosophical issues, and have difficulty to ascertain what, in fact, is the proper course of action. There will be differences of opinion. The differences arise in part because we are all individuals and we have a unique perspective. And the fact that we have differing perspectives does not mean that one perspective is invalid and another is. It doesn't mean that necessarily, but it means that there can be many conflicting perspectives, and they can all have at least some validity, or they may even be both fully valid. But
Right.
there are differences, not infrequently, even between the acharyas. They will have differences of opinion on various things. However, the differences do not become the basis for enmity. There may be argument, there may even be heated argument. And yet, in spite of that, the dealings are always respectful. Sometimes a devotee is very zealous. They genuinely believe this or that point that they are holding to. And out of a sincere desire to render service, they may try to express a particular perspective, not for the sake of being argumentative, but in a mood of service. But somehow there will be differences of opinion, and sometimes strongly held opinions, and not just opinions, but opinions based upon upon the words of Guru and Shastra and the previous acharyas. One can examine all of those in detail and still differ with others who are similarly looking at the available authoritative evidence. But somehow or other, we have to always remain respectful, even when there are differences of opinion. There are a practical example. There are two camps within ISKCON, two different perspectives on how devotees should observe Vaishnav calendar events. One perspective is that Srila Prabhupada observed in a particular way. He followed the Panjika that was generated by the Gaudiya Math in Mayapur. And so throughout ISKCON, all the devotees all followed that one Panjika, which meant that everyone followed Ekadashi on the same day. And so legions of devotees are accustomed to following in that way. And when at some point in ISKCON, the process was changed such that Ekadashi was followed on different days and in different locations, many devotees found that to be very troublesome. It was complicated, difficult to wrap one's head around. And if you're traveling, it created all kinds of inconvenience and confusion. There is substantial merit to the idea of everyone observing on the same day. It makes things much easier to understand and to follow. But then in contrast to this, there are devotees who will point to Shastra and say that, well, Shastra is very explicit. It explains that the observance is supposed to be done in this particular way. And it is very heavy about it. It explains that there are very severe consequences for failing to do that. And such devotees will suggest that, well, Srila Prabhupada did not do things according to those injunctions of Shastra. But in answer to this, the devotees will say, well, but Srila Prabhupada didn't have a choice under the circumstances. There was no Panjika available for any place outside of India. And so he did the best he could. So they will argue that, well, now that we have the means to generate such a Panjika, then therefore we should follow, because there is the principle of Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, that they must all agree. If there is disagreement between the Guru and the Shastra and other acharyas, then it typically means one of two things. Either the Guru is not bona fide, or we are misunderstanding the Guru. So was Srila Prabhupada not a bona fide spiritual master? I'm sure everyone will agree that he absolutely was a bona fide spiritual master. So why would he apparently defy the Shastra? So one camp will say that, well, he had no choice but to do this. Anyway, this is one example of differences that even even amongst the GBC, there is no agreement on this. Even amongst the gurus in ISKCON, some hold to one idea and some hold to the other idea. And so the advanced devotees reason that everyone should just simply follow according to their lights. Whatever you believe to be proper and correct and acceptable, then, do that. Let us not argue about it. Because we've argued it for decades without arriving at a resolution. And so we can probably continue arguing for decades more. What will be the use? So, but it will it will continue to be argued because there are devotees who feel that they have a duty, that it's a very, very serious issue, and for the protection of the devotees, they feel that it's important that they understand what Shastra says. And the matter is complicated because what Shastra says is very complicated. Mostly, it's not even accessible to the devotees. Most of this particular issue is presented in Hari Bhakti Vilas by Srila Sanatana Goswami, and in the 12th and 13th Vilas. And he gives his Digdarshani Tika, his commentary, in which he explains how to properly understand all these things. And then Srila Bhakti Siddhanta also, in his introduction to the Navadi Panjika, he explains how to properly understand these directives and how to calculate a Panjika. And so we have, devotees have created a program that follows all of the Shastric injunctions and gives timing exactly according to what has been outlined by Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. But still, some say that, Srila Prabhupada didn't seem to give that much importance to these things. He did things differently. So it's a point of contention. Some would say a gray area. And what can be done? The devotees are going to argue about it. One camp feels it's a dire emergency. Devotees are going to do harm to themselves if they don't follow in this way. And others feel, well, that's unnecessary. So.
Do you remember the time when Prabhupada, when there was the idea to celebrate Janmashtami one day here and one day in India? What Prabhupada said about that? 1976.
Janmashtami, that when we were all following the Mayapur Panjika, we all observed Janmashtami on the same day. But technically, that could not be correct because Janmashtami it corresponds with a specific astrological condition, which is different depending upon where you are on the face of the earth.
Right.
Similarly,
so, I don't know the exact details. Maybe you can research it for us and give us some feedback on it. But Jayapataka Swami, even recently, I think it was not so long ago, he also just cited that example again, that I think it was Prajumna. I don't know. Like I said, you can research it for us. But even Prajumna had mentioned that, if we start to use these time zones, then we should be celebrating Janmashtami here and Janmashtami on a different day in the West and, things like that. And Prabhupada said, don't overthink it.
Yeah, I've heard that story. I don't know. I didn't hear Srila Prabhupada say it myself.
Right.
We don't have it in writing.
Right.
It's hearsay, may absolutely be true, but what we do have is the fundamental principle of Guru Shastra Sadhu. So, the sadhus, the previous acharyas in Shastra tell us one thing. Um, and so, and Srila Prabhupada, may have had a different idea about how we should do that. But I'll say this: there are absolutely times I can point to specific examples of Srila Prabhupada making changes, and in this
I agree.
seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we just in the last chapter, in the 11th chapter, we were reading about this. Srila Prabhupada discusses the fact that it's actually improper to be initiating, particularly second initiation, Yavanism alleges, there's all kinds of Shastric injunctions that regulate how all these things are to be done. And Srila Prabhupada did things that were in violation of those injunctions. But although he did that, he also provided the rationale, and the rationale is also supported by Shastra. Shastra explains that in times of emergency, it's possible to do these things. And so Srila Prabhupada explains why this is presently an emergency, and so therefore it's justifiable. So the point is that in that circumstance, Srila Prabhupada was not defying Shastra. Although, for those who don't thoroughly understand the issues, it would appear that he was violating important tenets of Shastra. And there are many individuals, groups of Brahmins in India, and that will find fault with Srila Prabhupada for this. But so Srila Prabhupada explained how, in fact, he's actually following the Shastra. So the principle of Guru Shastra Sadhu is maintained. He did not deviate from that. In the case of the Panjika, it's more difficult to understand that. There may be some Shastric basis for simplifying the following of the Panjika, but I have not seen it. I'm not aware of anybody presenting that evidence anywhere. There is, to the contrary, a great deal of evidence that should not be done. But what Srila Prabhupada's actual opinion is. And with regards to that comment from Srila Prabhupada, what had happened was that Pradyumna had taken Srila Prabhupada was pressing him to create a proper Panjika because he understood that we were not following the Panjika properly, but we didn't have a proper Panjika. We didn't have someone qualified to create that Panjika. Not only did we not have someone in ISKCON competent to create a proper Panjika, there was no one even in the Gaudiya Math competent to do it. The science had been lost. And throughout India, there was no one. And a great deal of research was done to try to find, an authoritative source of information throughout all of India and all the other sampradayas. Everyone else was following the Mayapur Panjika because no one knew how to do it. So Srila Prabhupada was, explained that this is the business of a Brahmana. He should be doing this. And he pressed Pradyumna to learn the science and produce a Panjika. What Pradyumna actually did, he created something which was he divided the earth up into 12 zones and created a Panjika for each one of them. And then he disseminated that Panjika to all the different temples. And immediately the devotees began to complain because this was the first time they were having to follow different times in different places. But what he had done was artificial. It was not strictly according to the Shastra. It was kind of a manufactured thing. It did follow roughly what Shastra said, because calendar events such as Ekadashi are local events, they're not global events. It has to be determined based upon your location, because it's all calculated based upon the time of the sunrise. It's based upon the deity of the moon, and when a particular deity is prevailing at the Arunodaya, which is prior to dawn. At that moment, whichever deity is in effect, that's the deity of that day. So, but the time of the sunrise, and thus the time of Arunodaya, is different everywhere you go on Earth. So therefore, the time of Ekadashi or Janmashtami will not be the same everywhere. So Pradyumna tried to account for this, but he did it in a way that was a manufactured product of his intelligence. And so, whatever Srila Prabhupada's comment was, he is alleged to have said, this is over intelligent. Was he referring to the effort to try to create a Panchika that was in conformity with the Shastra, or was he talking about the fact that Pradyumna had created something that was actually not in conformance with the Shastra,
Right.
but
Right.
the product of his
Right.
Yes.
Right. I agree with you totally. Yeah, of course, that opens the door for practically, I don't know, I would say 50% of everything that Prabhupada did not write down, because it seems like there's a movement within ISKCON also saying that if Prabhupada didn't pen it down, if it's not, recorded somewhere, then sorry, that's a gray area, like you were explaining all along. So still, like you said, we have to follow the system of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And, in this case, as, about these dates, our GBC had, spoken, and, we had discussed it about, this particular situation of devotees traveling. Maybe then you can just elaborate a little bit on your proposal for devotees that travel from New York, for example, to come and stay at Gita Nagari, when there's, different dates for these different locations, how they observe Gita Nagari, should they observe Ekadasi? Should they follow 2 Ekadasis, 1.5 Ekadasi, half Ekadasi, or do they need to consult an astrologer to figure out how to observe Ekadasi? Please let me know some thoughts on that, so maybe we can have a better understanding of how to observe Ekadasi when you're traveling.
Yeah, we had, as I say, the injunctions of Shastra are, just today I was looking at part of it, the 13th Vilas from Hari Bhakti Vilas, about 350 pages of instructions.
Right.
And similarly, the 12th Vilas is a little bit less than that, but it's a lot of material. It goes into great detail, and there's a lot of emphasis, a lot of repetition. The matter has been made simple for us, relatively speaking, by the devotees who put together the Garubda calendar program. All the directives in Hari Bhakti Vilas have all been programmed into this facility. It will create a Panjika for anywhere on earth that perfectly follows what the Shastra says.
Right.
But still, there are those who say, well, this is unnecessary. Srila Prabhupada didn't do it. So, and then the other party will say, well, Srila Prabhupada couldn't do it. He had no choice.
Right.
Who can say?
Right.
We're left to speculate.
Right.
And,
We just have to jointly agree. My understanding is we just have to jointly agree that, okay, this is, a practical situation that, puts in neither camp, but, this is our practical application. It's like I was saying, when a devotee travels from New York, for example, and, he started observing his Ekadasi over there, and then he arrives to spend the night here in Gita Nagari. We've had this a couple of times. If he comes to Gita Nagari and then, the next day he's expecting to, well, even if he comes for dinner, say for example, he comes for dinner and we're cooking grains, and he's like, hey, it's Ekadasi. No, it's not Ekadasi for us. Our Ekadasi is tomorrow. So then he says, okay, so what should I do? Should I break my fast now, or should I follow Ekadasi again tomorrow? And, it's just too much, too austere. So I say, Prabhu, you make your decision and you live with your decision and you get your reaction according to your decision.
yeah, it's complicated. What to do?
Right.
So, devotees have to make decisions for themselves. But
Yes. Right.
I'm thinking about writing something to explain something of the position of Hari Bhakti Vilas on these things, just so the devotees are aware, because we don't have a complete translation of Hari
Right.
Bhakti Vilas in print that's
Right.
widely available to everyone. And
Right.
so it's been largely a mystery to everyone.
Right.
And not only that, if we did have it, it's
Mhm.
so lengthy that most devotees are not going to wade through it.
Right.
And it's complicated.
Right.
Um,
And because
you really
Krishna
have to.
right, in
Pardon?
Krishna consciousness, we also have this principle where we can sometimes break a lower principle for a higher principle. So we understand, those examples are there too. So that further complicates, another layer of,
Yes, higher principles certainly occur.
yeah,
But they should, however, always be supported by Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu.
right,
Whatever it is, it's
right,
the idea is it's always supposed to somehow conform to Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, and
right,
that's the test. That's the final test.
right, right,
If it does not conform,
right,
then we're
yes,
supposed to reject it.
right,
But there are it's a problem. It's a problem.
yeah,
Um, some would say that, when it comes close to there was a time when devotees would not travel around
right,
Ekadashi.
right, right,
Um, and that, solved the problem directly or indirectly. And there was also a time, because we were all following the Mayapur Panjika, which meant
right,
that in the United States, much of the time we were not following Ekadashi properly.
right,
And the devotees were actually noticing that every Ekadashi, they were experiencing all kinds of extreme misfortune. Terrible
right,
things were happening.
right,
Devotees were getting into car accidents, and just everything seemed to go wrong. And so it became widely accepted throughout ISKCON that Ekadashi is an inauspicious day. Everyone thought Ekadashi is very inauspicious.
yeah,
And then Srila Prabhupada explained that no, Ekadashi is not inauspicious. Ekadashi is the
oh,
most auspicious day.
right,
But it appeared to us to be inauspicious because we're not following it properly.
right,
Anyway, it
right,
remains an issue.
yeah,
Traveling is particularly a problem. What do you do then? You
yeah,
start out following and you wind up somewhere else where you should not be following, or
right,
vice versa. You
right.
start out not following and then you arrive somewhere where you should be following.
Then
So
take
what
out
what
you get severe reactions on
yeah,
the
it's complicated. But I haven't I'm I'm studying Hari Bhakti Vilas right now. I took a lot of pains to track down translations and
but then just
so I'm trying to answer these questions.
right. Just be careful though that once you painstakingly come up with something, then someone's going to criticize you. I don't think it's going to be me, but someone's going to criticize you and say that maybe the translation you used might be questionable, or the different, translations. It's not a ISKCON bona fide Bhaktivedanta Book Trust translation. So sorry. So, it's kind of like, I guess we're finding ourselves in a situation, similar to the Vaishnavi Diksha Guru situation where, again, there's, some say, some say, some say. The GBC says this, India says that, the West says this, and it's, wow, difficult.
Yeah, it's a problem. It will remain a problem for some time. Maybe one day there'll be some final resolution.
Right.
Right now, even the GBC cannot agree.
Right.
The GBC is divided.
Right.
The gurus are divided.
Right.
The whole movement's divided.
Right.
Anyway, this is an example of ways that there can be differences between devotees, in spite of all sincerity.
Right.
Devoted with all good intentions. With good intentions, they mean well. That everyone's trying to help one another in Krishna consciousness, and yet there are differences of opinion and opinions strongly held. Someone has read something and they think that on the basis of this, we can't possibly do this. We have to do this. And I've got to save the devotees because if they do this, they're going to suffer terribly. Sincerity is there. People are not intentionally trying to make problems for others. They're not arguing for the sake of argument. There's a sincere desire to do the right thing somehow or other. But by Krishna's arrangement, somehow or other, there are differences, and the resolution is not clear. Krishna engineers things sometimes for various reasons that sometimes we can't understand. By Krishna's arrangement, the Battle of Kurukshetra came about. Arjuna wound up fighting with his own family members. Unthinkable. But that situation was created by Krishna. Somehow or other, the end result should be that we think more of Krishna. We remember Krishna somehow or other. Everything finds its ultimate resolution in Krishna. So we have to remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, and somehow cooperate and remain respectful in spite of differences.
Right. Because Prabhupada said we have to cooperate. Right. Prabhupada wanted us somehow or the other, despite difficulties for the success of our movement, to cooperate despite all of these dilemmas. Lead to our success in ISKCON, pushing on the movement. So yes, thank you for sharing all those thoughts and realizations. We are very, very grateful to have you so that you can, dissect and help us to navigate through these challenges. Thank you, devotees. Any other realizations, thoughts anybody wants to share? We'll make the announcement just now that I think my untrustworthy weatherman's calling for rain. So probably evening class we'll have in the farm buffet. And we'll go from there. We'll try to do Zoom. I don't know. Did yesterday's class come on Zoom? I didn't see the speaker there somewhere. Nobody was Zooming it. Today because I'll be there. We'll set up the Zoom so others can also participate on Zoom if they can't make it physically to come. This will be Marge's last class he'll give. Tomorrow morning, late morning, we head for Washington, D.C., and then Marge flies out on Tuesday morning to LA. So thank you, devotees. We appreciate all of you very, very much.